What does maple syrup taste like besides maple? That turns out that's a complicated question and one that's key to grading standards helping protect Vermont's maple industry. So today on Across the Fence, we're sitting down with a couple of experts and getting a taste. Hello, Vermont. The sense of taste is inherently subjective, influenced by everything from our personal preferences and cultural backgrounds to our emotional associations. But in the food industry, tasters can be trained to apply objective sensory science. For example, when performing quality assurance to ensure a product is true to type. The process is simpler when the product in question has a standardized recipe. But what about when it's essentially wild, like maple syrup, with a range of flavors reflecting everything from soil conditions to weather fluctuations? What does maple syrup taste like? What should it taste like? And how do you ensure that when sugar makers grade their own syrup, they're applying the same tasting standards? Those are great questions for my guests today. Joining me are Mark Isselhart and Roy DeRocha, a couple of familiar faces on Across the Fence. Mark is the UVM Extension Maple Program Leader, and Roy is a global sensory expert working with UVM Extension to train objective tasters and develop taste profiles for a variety of Vermont specialty products, including maple syrup. Mark and Roy, welcome. Sorry, I just kind of threw a whole lot at the audience there, right there. But I wanted to kind of get us kicked off because I thought it was fascinating that the question, what does maple syrup taste like, is actually not an easy question. You sort of answer it by saying it tastes like maple syrup, but that doesn't necessarily help us out, right? So, okay, what does maple syrup taste like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people who've had it before will recognize that maple flavor, but there's also a lot of complexity and there's a lot of variability. So it can really vary from a delicate flavor with maybe hints of sort of dairy or cream, all the way through a very strong flavor where it's almost burnt, but it's not quite. So more brown spice, sort of dark flavor, and everything in between. The important thing to remember is sugar makers aren't using ingredients specifically following a recipe to make a certain flavor. They make what they make, and then they use their skills to determine which flavor class they just made.
And why does it matter? I mean, we know why it matters to the individual taster because you know what you like and what you don't like, but to the industry, why does it matter what maple tastes like?
Sure. So a lot of it has to do with the consumer getting the high quality product they expect. Maple syrup is expensive, it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, it's very limited, it's heavily influenced by weather, so it is a precious item and people spend money on it and they want to have a high quality product. 100 years ago, the maple industry got together and said we need to have standards for what maple syrup is, not just on flavor, although flavor is important, but color, clarity, density as well.
This goes back 100 years?
It does go back 100 years. At the time, there was a lot of fraudulent product put out there called maple, but it had a lot of inferior sugars added. And the maple industry really felt like they were at a loss there. So they came together, agreed to a set of standards, which have evolved over time. But flavor is really an important part, so communicating what the flavor is.
But there's also not some master taster who comes to every sugar maker's and tastes their syrup and assigns a grade. Who does the tasting for any individual sugar maker's syrup?
Ultimately, it's whoever's name is on the bottle. So if it's an individual producer, they put their name on it, they're responsible. If it's a larger sort of blend or maybe a private label product, it's whoever's name is on there that's responsible.
So then that is how you come into the question, right? Because tell us what you've been doing with the maple team at UVM, because it has to do with this idea of standardization running up against taste subjectivity, right?
Yeah, exactly right. The word standardization is the key word here. My background, I'm a sensory expert, which means I'm a human instrument, and I objectively smell things and taste them and tell you what it smells like and how strong. And I work with people to do the same thing, to objectively smell and taste maple syrup, describe what it is using standard terms that we all understand what they are, and using standard intensities.
Or at least that we all agree what they are.
That we at least all agree what they are, correct.
Keep going.
And so that's when I started working with Mark, and I, as a consumer, I love maple syrup, and I love maple syrup in Vermont. And being able to bring all of this objective knowledge from other industries like tasting coffee and tasting ice cream and tasting beer, bringing it to maple syrup to help develop more standard terms and a more standard way to communicate what all of these experts know has just been exciting.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about how objective tasting works.
Okay, so the first descriptive method in the world was actually developed in Massachusetts in the 1940s, and it was an attempt to objectively measure what we smell and taste and how strong. And in order to do that, we have to calibrate people the same way we would calibrate instruments in the lab.
I think that's the coolest thing.
So we have to take reference standards. We have to take something that smells like maple, smells like butter, smells like burnt sugar, burnt marshmallows, and we have to develop standards to show people so they can smell it and taste it, and we can say, okay, from now on, that's caramel, that's burnt sugar, and everyone will agree and say, okay, from now on, when I smell that, I'll call that burnt sugar. And that's how we calibrate people to be standard and to use the same terms.
So how complex is maple syrup?
It's incredibly complex. So the work that we're talking about is really funded through a grant that actually my colleague, Dr. Abby Vandenberg, received, and I inherited when she left UVM. Part of that work is designed to look at the chemistry of flavor. We've identified over 100 individual compounds that contribute to the flavor. So it is very complex. The other thing is how variable it can be from season to season, if it's a warm year versus a colder year. All that really influences the flavor perception. So in general, the language around grading syrup is pretty modest. It's light syrup tastes more delicate, dark syrup tastes stronger. What we're trying to do is come up with a more repeatable way of describing flavor that we can communicate when it meets grade A standards, and also, really importantly, having common language to describe when syrup doesn't meet grade A standards, because at that point it needs to be called processing grade and doesn't belong in a retail container.
Right. And so when you mention terms, like even things like light or delicate, that's hard. It's hard to imagine like what one person's impression of is something that you're also trying to drive toward is having some more markers that are more specific. I mean, is that like we're getting ready to do a little sensory test here right now? And is that kind of the idea, is to also be able to train people to recognize and name deliberate flavors that should be in or should be out?
I think it is. The word I would use is communication.
Okay.
We really are trying to give the experts who know what grade A is or they know what it isn't, more words that we all understand to communicate to someone who's not an expert what it tastes like and what it smells like. And that's really what this is all about. It's just helping to communicate between each other and helping to communicate with the customer on, okay, here's what grade A is, here's what it should be, and here are some specific words we have that we all agree on, and here are some things that maybe cause it not to be grade A.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to give me a little test.
Yeah, I'm going to put you through a little bit of sensory training here.
I'm excited for this. Okay, all right.
And so one of the most powerful ways that we have to calibrate you as a human instrument, because that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to calibrate you as a human instrument.
I'm going to try anyways, I've had a cold.
We make up these things called odor recognition bottles. Now, the way this works is we'll put a certain smell in each of these bottles that we want to teach you what it is and give you the words to describe it. And you just practice with it. You come along, you smell it, and we tell you what it is. And after 2 or 3 times doing it, you commit that to memory so that for the rest of your life, whenever you smell this odor, you can put the same word on it as Mark and I and other people. Now, one hint here. We do have a methodology because the human nose is the most sensitive instrument in the world. Just so you know, we can smell, average people, compounds thousands of times lower than any instrument in the lab. So because of that, we don't want to overwhelm the nose. So what I don't want you to do is take the cap off and go, that's not a good thing. We want to take very short repetitive sniffs. We call them bunny sniffs. So you're going to take the cover off and you're going to just very carefully take a couple small sniffs and see if you smell something. And then if you do, try to describe to Mark and I what it is you smell.
Yogurt.
Yogurt, that's a good answer.
Vanilla.
Vanilla. So you're picking up on the caramelized notes that are in here because now I want you to go back, and this is really important because as I help you and give you words, you may say, you know what, yeah, I smell that. So some words we would associate with this, you picked up the dairy, maybe some might call it a little more butterscotch. like
Okay.
like a caramelized butter or
Is
artificial
that-
butterscotch.
Is that what it is?
It
Oh,
is.
see, and now he says it, and I'm like, yes, of course it's butterscotch. Yes, okay.
So this is a butterscotch dairy character that sometimes we find in maple syrup, and,
Okay.
and in the lighter versions, this is okay. It's something that we would find. So we
Okay.
can try another one.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Oh. See, because I want to say it smells like maple.
That's actually a great answer. This is actually an artificial maple flavor that
Is
they
it
use
fenugreek?
in artificial. It's got fenugreek in it, but yeah,
Okay.
it's formulated by a flavor company.
Okay.
But it is complex because
Yeah.
maple is kind of a synergistic effect of a bunch of things. Caramel and butterscotch and vanilla. Okay, now we're going to get into some
Okay.
some
all right.
other ones.
Oh. Well, this smells like, ooh, like paint thinner.
Got a little bit of that. I'm going to give you another suggestion.
Okay.
One of the things you should be experiencing, and all people do when we start this,
Okay.
you smell it and you say, I know what that is, but then
Yeah,
you're
but
hard
then
to
I
pick
don't
a
know
word.
what it is, yes.
If you smell that and think Band-Aids.
Oh, it's
And
plastic.
it's
Yeah.
like Band-Aids,
okay.
medicinal. That's a phenolic compound that sometimes we find in maple syrup. Sometimes we say medicinal Band-Aids.
Okay.
That's an example of something that we wouldn't want to have in maple syrup.
Okay, I think we only have time for one
So-
more, so which one should I do?
Do this one.
Okay, do this one. Here we go.
I think that's the one I want.
Oh, what on earth is that? I mean, it smells like a locker room, but I have no idea.
That was an excellent description.
Okay.
It's a compound called isovaleric acid. It's stinky cheese.
Stinky cheese.
It's
okay.
dirty feet. It's
Dirty feet.
armpit.
Okay, yeah, locker room.
It's something from
Okay.
microbial infections of things, and it's
amazing.
one of the off notes we look for.
And that tends to be
Uh-huh.
something that shows up at the end of the season. Sap flow rates are really low. Sap quality is quite low. You can smell it from outside the sugar house.
Uh-huh.
But when you're the one boiling, sometimes you get so saturated in those smells, you don't realize this off note has crept in.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes it's someone else in your operation saying, "What? Are you doing laundry in here? What's going on?"
That's crazy. So this makes me totally understand now, because I'm going to have to summarize a little bit because we're running out of time. But this is why then you're now working to figure out how are we going to communicate this to all the sugar makers, help develop this shared and common vocabulary for descriptors, so that then things can become a little bit more standardized in how we're talking. Absolutely fascinating. Well, thank you guys both so much for joining me. This has been a real education. I'm going to remember some of those smells for a long time. As always, Vermont, thank you for learning and exploring with me today, and thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.